morning. Welcome back to ONNPoint. A new month, a new week, and a new decade. I'm Andy Martins. We're live on ON-TV and live on Facebook. We start the new year off with talking to our MP, Terry Sheenan. He's live and he'll be in the studio with me right after these messages. We're back on ONNPoint with live shows. I'm Andy Martins. We're live on ON-TV and live on Facebook. It feels great. January snowy morning, and our MP Terry Sheenan is here. Thank you so much, Terry, for making time for ONNPoint. I really appreciate it.
Well, Andy, Happy New Year to you and to all your fans. Thank you.
Same to you, Terry. Little birdie on the wall told me that you're going to have a great start in Ottawa there. Your daughter is going to school in Ottawa, and that's wonderful. You're a busy guy, but having your daughter there is a good thing, too.
Well, absolutely. And, you know, having my daughter there is great. And my wife will come to visit from time to time, too, as well, because sometimes, as you know, and in particular with my new role as Parliamentary Secretary, I'm not able to get back to the riding because of my duties in the capacity of Parliamentary Secretary to Economic Development FedNor. So it'll be great to have that kind of support. But I do get back to the Sioux pretty much every weekend and every opportunity, save and except if I have to be debating in Parliament, you know, and some other duties that are required in Ottawa. So yes, it'll be great to have my family there.
It may be shorter than sometimes you wish it is, but you do get back as much as you can.
I do. I make a point of it. You know, I really enjoy meeting with my constituents, so I make a point of getting back on the weekends. You know, throughout the month, there's usually a constituency week where I meet with people and do great interviews with you, Andy, so that's great.
Appreciate it. Let's start with this, Terry. Final thoughts on the last year's election. It's done, and it was quite, you and I talked about it before the broadcast, it was quite an interesting campaign.
Well, it was, and first of all, I wanted to thank the constituents of the riding of Sault Ste. Marie for once again putting their trust in me. It's a privilege and honor to serve them, and I'm going to redouble my efforts to work hard for them. The election was hard. It was very negative nationally, and I think that turned a lot of people off. We know that the voter turnout in Sault Ste. Marie was down from 2015, so one of the things that we need to do is continue to engage with the constituency to make sure that their people's voices are heard, via the ballot. So I'm going to continue to strive towards that. In my background in political science, I'm always looking at opportunities to get voter turnout increased.
Yeah, I think the negativity got going very quickly, and nobody realized that the Conservatives, that it would work in a negative way, and it just kept going like a snowball. It didn't stop.
Andy, it's a good observation. I noticed that at the door. People were, telling me that they were thinking about not voting. I would talk to them and say, how important it is. In particular, you think of all the people that have protected democracy, Canadians that have fought on foreign, lands to protect democracy. So I think it was really important, and I think it also turned out that you saw the number of votes cast for me were down from 2015, but also the Conservative candidate this time got less than the Conservative candidate last time. The NDP candidate this time got less than the NDP candidate last time. So you saw that effect, across the board, and I think it's behooves us to continue to keep politics positive and keep moving forward.
Did you see that kind of trend with your advisors and such when you were during the campaign? That this was happening, and the voter suppression, there may be less votes at the end of the day?
Unfortunately, voter suppression sometimes is used by national parties. They figure that they're not going to get those votes to them, so they make efforts. It's an American-style politics to try and turn people off from voting for anyone because they know that they're not going to vote for them. So quite frankly, it's unfortunate, but it is intentional, because people always ask, how does this happen? But there are sometimes intentional voter suppression by creating such a negative atmosphere, and that's not the way it is in Canada. We are not that American-style politics that are so negative, and I think we have to be on guard to make sure that that does not continue to be pervasive in the future.
Exactly, it backfired on the Conservatives as such. That just doesn't work in this country. Let's fast track forward here to your, let the viewers know about your parliamentary assistant role to Minister Joly. That's quite an interesting role you have. We were talking about that before the broadcast.
Yeah, Minister Joly is the Minister of Economic Development, and what they've done is they've created 6, regional processes underneath her. So I'm going to be the Parliamentary Secretary for Economic Development, FEDNOR, for Northern Ontario. That's 90% of the landmass in all of Canada. In fact, you can put all of Eastern Canada in Northern Ontario. You can put Southern Quebec, Southern Ontario inside Northern Ontario. So we have a great amount of opportunities, a great amount of challenges, but there is an opportunity for us to continue to maximize opportunities for everyone in Northern Ontario. And like I've always said, a rising tide floats all boats. And of course, all regions need to work with the other regions. Right. So what's good for Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba can be good for Sault Ste. Marie in Northern Ontario. We just have to look at Tenaris and their involvement in the production of tubing for the oil and gas industry to underline and highlight that. So I'll work very closely with the other parliamentary secretaries, and of course Minister Joly, who has a great vision for this new position and for this new opportunity. So I'm really looking forward to getting out there, and in my past experience, because I've been born and raised in the Soo, I spent my life working in business and economic development for Sault Ste. Marie and Northern Ontario, so I'm ready to hit the ground running. It's
a role that really fits you, doesn't it, Terry? You've got the background. I remember years ago when I was still working at OLG, you had that background that makes it a real good fit here.
It does, Andy, and I've worked as the general manager of entrepreneurship, small business for what was called Enterprise Center Sault Ste. Marie. It was a division of the local Economic Development Corporation that also did small business development for Sault Ste. Marie and all of Algoma. And also I worked with all the other centres across Northern Ontario to move Northern Ontario forward. And then I was asked to work for the Ministry of Northern Development and Ministry of Northern Development and Mines as the Northern Development Advisor.
Right.
And worked across that. And then my role at the Ministry of Training, Colleges, Universities. I worked substantially across Northern Ontario. But before that, I was in the tourism industry, as you know, at Algoma's Water Tower Inn and Searchmount Ski Resort. So I've been serving and working for people, across Northern Ontario and Sault Ste. Marie and business and economic development in the private and public sector. So,
you mentioned that also in this new role, it may keep you in Ottawa a little bit more than you'd like to be to come back here, but do you see other travel within Canada with this role as well? Or?
Well, yeah, I absolutely would. I think it's very close. You're basically second in charge to the minister. Mm-hmm. So you will be going out and meeting with folks across Northern Ontario, whether that be mayors and chiefs and councillors or businesses or not-for-profits, but people that are in universities, colleges, things that are involved in business and economic development. But I can tell you that as we know that what's good for the economy in Sault Ste. Marie is good for Northern Ontario, and vice versa for other places, whether it's up in the James Bay area or over in North Bay or Thunder Bay or Kenora. I'm not going to name every place in Northern Ontario, but that has a ripple effect across Northern Ontario, and by extension that happens in Canada. So when Western Canada is doing well, Northern Ontario is doing well. When Quebec's doing well, British Columbia does well.
That's
Eastern
right,
Canada,
yeah.
we're all connected. A province is a part of the country, not apart from the country.
It's a team effort for sure. And I met Minister Jolie 3.5 years ago. I'm really happy for you, Terry, because she is a go-getter. This woman is a doer. I could see that from the first time that I met her in Montreal.
Yes, I remember that, and that was a great opportunity for you to experience the minister firsthand, because she's a lawyer, also a communicator, very, very intelligent, dynamic, and has a really good heart and really cares about people. And I think that's really important to have in somebody responsible for economic development, that you really care about the person you're dealing with, whether you're in the boardroom or the lunchroom. You got to really, really have a caring heart. I think that's critical for economic development. So
it is. You really need to be a people person and understand what people are going through.
I agree.
Minority governments, I think, are good. Good for Ontario. They're good for Canada. I think the Prime Minister and you and Minister Jolie and others in government, you understand what it takes to make a minority government work.
Yes, I think some political pundits have called this a major minority government. So we still need to rely on the support of any number of parties. We're not doing any coalition government, but we feel that our platform has enough in it to garner support from various political parties. Maybe not on every vote, but there's enough there to continue to create opportunities for all Canadians, and I think Canadians will expect that, and they will punish people that they feel topple the government or the government topples itself, because they want, they sent a clear message on climate change. Like 70-75% of the people voted for parties with climate change in their platform. So
right. Stay right there, Terry. We'll be right back. We'll take a few commercial messages and right back with ONNPoint. Don't go anywhere.
That Ontario established a $100 million affordability fund to help Ontarians who don't qualify for low-income conservation programs ease the burden of their electricity bill. Whether you rent or own your home, as long as you pay your electric bill, you could qualify. There are 3 levels of support available. The first is a home energy kit with upgrades like smart power bars and LED light bulbs. The second includes Energy Star appliances that help keep things cool during the hot summer months. The third is for electrically heated homes so that your power bills don't break the bank during those long Canadian winters. Plus, all upgrades, including installation, are completely free of charge. Visit affordabilityfund.org or call 1-855-494-FUND to find out if you qualify.
ONNPoint. We're live on TV, we're live on Facebook, and this is the first show of the month, the new year, and a new decade. Couldn't think of a better guy to talk to than our MP, our representative in Ottawa, Terry Sheenan, is here live. Welcome back to the show, Terry.
Well, thanks, Andy. It's great to be here.
No problem. We're talking about minority governments before the break, and I think the days are gone where, governments are toppled within 6 months to 9 months. And you mentioned correctly that if governments are toppled, this party will pay the price at this point. I think that's where the electorate in Canada is at this present time.
Andy, that's a great observation. There is a major expectation by everyone, no matter how they voted last time, that this Parliament shall work for the people. And no one wants to go back to the polls tomorrow, the next day, or in 6 months. So, like I said, some political pundits have called this government a major minority government. So there's opportunities for us to work together. It just creates a lot of dialogue, which I'm all for. I'm the all-party co-chair of the Steel Caucus. I had the opportunity to work with a number of people on the steel issue down in Washington through the Trade Committee, through the Industry Committee, and we took that Team Canada approach. And so I want to continue that Team Canada approach, not only just on steel, but in my role as Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Economic Development, getting all of Northern Ontario working together and all of Canada working together for economic development that'll create opportunities for all.
Exactly, and I've been watching it very carefully as I do, and I need to make it my business to know what's going on, and I'm quite confident the Prime Minister has an idea. He knows where he needs to go with this minority government.
He has, and he took a lot of time to sit down with all the party leaders to chat and to talk about them. Many people have seen the reports that were coming out of Ottawa of all the meetings. He then met with all the premiers, and we heard loud and clear what the various priorities are, and we're going to move our platform forward. And with the input from the other parties to make sure that Canadians see the benefits that are there. We have a budget that will be coming up, that'll create a whole bunch of opportunities for people. So I'm really looking forward to it. It does take a lot of work, and you're right. We do have to spend probably more time in Ottawa, just because of the sheer numbers. So in a minority government, local MPs, doesn't matter where you're from, what party you're from, there'll be less opportunities to be released when the House is sitting.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
But the people know it. People expect us to do work in Sault Ste. Marie and in Ottawa for the betterment. So it's great, and with technology, there's so many opportunities for us to continue to work together, whether it's teleconferences, video conferences, and I continue to meet with local people. Whether I'm in Sault Ste. Marie or in Ottawa, I'm always working with people here, and by extension will be Northern Ontario as well.
Exactly, and this country has a history of doing great things in the 60s with Lester Pearson.
Yep.
And elsewhere. Minority governments can be a benefit in this country.
Another great observation, Andy, and the pundits have said that Trudeau Sr., this is what the pundits said, became a better prime minister after the minority government that he headed up, and then got a lot of things moved forward. And so I think there's a huge amount of opportunities. It just has to take an honest commitment by all people to work together for the betterment of all Canadians.
That's right. Let's talk about Chrystia Freeland. I noticed from 2015 on, she became clearly the #1 minister and the person that really has things done in this country. And I'm not surprised she's the deputy prime minister. Maybe you can let our viewers know, because she's been in the Sioux now twice, and you've really developed a good relationship with her, and let the viewers know what Chrystia Freeland means to this government.
Yeah, Minister Freeland's absolutely amazing, and her hard work has been rewarded. She is the deputy minister. She's still taking care of a number of important files, including the free trade agreement, the new NAFTA 2.0, among other things, and including looking after Canada and all the different areas of Canada. So I'll be working with Minister Joly as well as Minister Freeland. So as you know, I was appointed to the Trade Committee about a year ago or so, year and a half ago. Obviously, I've been doing a lot of work on the steel front, and that became a major issue, so I was able to work very closely with Mr. Freeland. We met many times. I call her a friend, and we were a part of that strategy, the week prior to the tariffs being lifted on steel and aluminum, being down in Washington. But she is dynamic, intelligent, and we're certainly glad to have her as the deputy, and I'll continue to work closely with her as well.
Now, am I correct on that with the USMCA? That still needs to be ratified in Ottawa. Is that correct as such before the deal becomes law?
Yes, when we were down in Washington prior to the 232s being lifted, I took the Team Canada approach, and it was recognized by the other parties. And we sat across all parties, and we would eyeball the American politicians and just be very frank with them and said, we will not ratify that in the House of Commons until the 232s are lifted. So that did happen. So there were some people saying, hey, do you think that you will ratify the NAFTA deal? We weren't going to ratify the NAFTA deal until the Democrats and the Republicans figured out what they were going to do and finalize their documentation and pass it, because we didn't want to pass it first and then have them change it substantially. So as part of the process, the new Parliament, the 43rd Parliament, will receive it and debate it in the House of Commons and pass it accordingly.
Right, that'll get done within the next few months.
Yes, it's definitely a priority. $2 billion worth of trade every single day with the United States. One just has to take a look at the international bridge here.
Enormous, exactly.
Enormous, it's huge, and it's very important for Sault Ste. Marie, but all of Canada, it goes without saying. So, again, hats off to Minister Freeland, and I was proud to be a part of her team that got the job done.
Oh, enormous. And people need to realize what an enormous task this was to get it done. Terry, in this new term that's about to come up in a few weeks, are you going to do anything different than you did between 2015 and 2019?
I'm going to continue to do what I do. I'm continually available to my constituents. I work very hard. I'm very open, transparent, easy to reach. People may not agree with me every time, but they always say to me, Terry, I sure am glad that you got back to me, you wrote back to me, you called me back, you met with me. But that's just what democracy is. But what you do is when you take a look at the last 4 years, I hope that people will say that I agreed with you more times than I disagreed with you, and I think that's reflective in the results here locally. But that's what I realize is important. So you need to hear people, even if you have different points of view. But even after that discussion, you leave with a little bit more of an understanding, and I strongly suggest that that's critical. So I'm going to continue to make myself open to the people of Sault Ste. Marie, but Northern Ontario and Canada in this new role. And I'm going to be proud to be standing up in question period, to take questions, to answer, to participate, to move this great country forward.
Exactly. That's why I like about you, Terry. If you I've been watching it carefully. If you disagree with somebody, you tell them why you disagree, and come up with solutions for the problem. And that's the best way to be. You learned in your early days from being a city councilor. You've got to get back to the people, not in a week, but in a few days. And that's why you need the experience of being a city councilor.
Andy, you hit it on the head, and that this last term was an extension of being a city councilor for 4 terms, and people always say that, at least you got back to me. At least you got back to me. Hey, you didn't vote the way I wanted you to, but you got back to me. And then I found that people would feel confident in contacting me, and then I would find that we were agreeing on some points, and I was voting that way. So if you take a look at my 22 years on the school board as a city councilor and as an MP, I hope that people would again say that Terry, I agreed with you a vast majority more times than I disagreed with you. So I hope that's the way people would think about me.
Now, the workload of an MP is a little bit higher than the city councilor as such, but you need that basic experience to get to the next level.
It certainly does help. I think that those kind of experiences, because those issues continue to rise. Sometimes we've seen that movie before, whether it's restructuring of businesses, whether it's local infrastructure needs. It certainly does help for you to understand, what your local communities here in the riding are striving to do, what they've strived to done in the past, and like the Initiative Discovery Center, that was something that was 40 years in the making.
That's right.
That I was glad to make happen this last term. And I knew it had been a priority for local Indigenous people and for the post-secondary institution people as well. So I'm going to continue to work forward to keep moving the proverbial yardsticks forward.
Wonderful, Terry. Thank you so much for coming in. The time always goes fast when you're on, and we'll have you on again. And all the best to you in the upcoming term.
All the best to you, Andy, and your family.
All right, thank you. We'll be back to wrap up On Point right after these messages.
Thank you.
This is On TV.
In your home, lighting is just as important as style.
With PowerView Motorization from Hunter Douglas, you can schedule your shades to light up the room, create privacy, or both, automatically. No hands required.
So your shades will always be in the right place at the right time in style. And it's only from Hunter Douglas.
Welcome back to On Point. There you have it. MP Terry Sheenan, new month, new week, and new decade. We're rolling for another new year of 2020. Tomorrow, Ward 2 Councillor Lisa Vazo Allen, who was my choice for the Best Counselor of 2019, and you'll see why tomorrow. Until then, Andy Martins, have a great day.